रे नहीं जो विसारी जुगल चरण सोल चिन्ह जेह नजर समीपे रहो हमारी एह. हरे कृष्ण महाराज ની જય, ઘનશ્યામ મહારાજ ની જય. About 230 years ago, Shree Maharaj descended on this earth with certain principles and messages. Through these messages, Bhagwan carried this fellowship through its growing pains and in result cultivated growth and formed its identity. Among the many messages that Bhagwan revealed, the principles of dharma, meaning codes of conduct, bhakti, meaning devotion, gnan, meaning knowledge of the soul, and vairagya, meaning knowledge of non-attachment towards this world, were all established by Bhagwan. But out of all these messages, Shree Maharaj unveiled the glory of this satsang fellowship. Glory, meaning Shree Maharaj explained and completely revealed the Mahima of God, saints, and his devotees. Today, our topic is Mahima. Mahima is such a thing which cannot be ever compared to any other spiritual endeavor. Such is his greatness. Just think. This is a hypothetical for you. Suppose you win the lottery. How excited would you be? Just think, you just won $100 million. And it all lies in that small piece of paper that we call a lottery ticket. You would have so much value for it, the piece of paper itself. Why? Because even if it just represents certain numbers in a sequential series that match the TV, it has more meaning inside of it. For example, a check. Suppose it's written for 0.1 cent compared to a check that's written for $1,000. It's just a piece of paper, but we know that there's more value behind it. We know there's more value in depositing the check for the money. Obviously, we've understood that, and due to that, our mind is constantly engaged in such. For the lottery ticket, our mind would be constantly engaged in that I'm going to save this lottery ticket until I have to turn it in to obtain that $100 million. I'm going to save it in such a place where it doesn't get wet, where it doesn't burn up, where it doesn't get lost or crinkled, in such a place. These are the thoughts a person has because he has value for that piece of paper. But more than that, he has value for that $100 million. And due to that, that person constantly remembers that lottery ticket. One feels this way about a piece of paper. Even dollar bills, if we think about it, they're just a piece of paper. A lottery ticket, it's a piece of paper. A check, it's a piece of paper. We have value. We understand the glory, we can say. We understand the weight of such a piece of paper in our life. But what about something more? Do we understand the value in a spiritual tense or not of religion? I mean, if you think about it, those numbers, if they were wrong on the lottery ticket, you would just like usual, just throw it away into the garbage. But the numbers match the TV, meaning you just won $100 million. Then that thought that you have for that piece of paper changes completely. In the same way, the meaning of Mahima is glory or value. But we're going to take the spiritual and religious perspective of it. The Mahima of what? What should we have the glory of? What should we value? Well, Mahima is truly to understand the glory, value, and greatness of God, saints, and his devotees. Meaning, let's break it down. Understanding the glory, the value, and greatness. Now, glory, value, and greatness kind of go hand in hand, but they're a little different. Now, see, the one who has value for something really cherishes that certain particular item, or you can say person, or anything that one has value for. If one understands the greatness of someone or something, they would really, you could say, remember it and respect it. There would not be any kind of disrespect in that perspective. And obviously glory. Similarly, you have glory for it, you would respect it, you would pretty much not do anything that would displease it. These words go hand in hand, but it's all about direction. We have value for money, but not for God, saints, or his devotees. It's kind of like a two-way street. Which way do you want to go? And that really determines a lot. Maybe you may not see it in the life right now, but in the future, or even after, when you leave this body, your soul, it will have to go into a different body, to per se. It all depends on what you choose, what you want to have the value, glory, and greatness of in this life. Now, Mahima, that is the foundation, you can say, of this unique and flourishing sampradaya, or you can say fellowship, religion. And if you think about it, in mostly all religions, certain people always have Mahima, or you can say always understand the glory of that particular religion that they are followers of. Obviously, without it, it's kind of like you don't have a foundation, you can say. Sure, all spiritual endeavors are great, but the concrete foundation in a house is more important than, you can say, the roof. You don't worry about the roof at first. You don't even think about the roof. You know it's going to keep the water out. You know it's going to save you from disastrous weather. But that is the second step. More than that, you think about the foundation. Now, everyone remembers 9/11, the incidents of 9/11. Everyone knows the Twin Towers that were completely broken by two planes crashing into them. Now, in remembrance of the Twin Towers, right now, the U.S. government is building what is called the Freedom Tower. It's being constructed as of right now. The height of this building is 1,781 feet, or to be particular, the year 1781. That's when the United States got its independence. Now, the Freedom Tower is such a tall building. Well, just think, if the foundation of this staggering tower is weak, how long do you think it would last? Even for any kind of other buildings, skyscrapers, towers, like the Eiffel Tower, or like the tower in Dubai, or even, say, the Sears Towers. All these high skyscrapers, their foundation must be so solid that it can withstand even the most remarkable weather, even the most disastrous weather, and yet nothing happens to it. This is the whole importance of that foundation. What is keeping that building from falling? It's its foundation. Architects design such a foundation because they know that they have to make it strong enough so the building lasts for a long time. In the same way, if we don't have Mahima, if we don't have a foundation for God, saints, and his devotees, how could we even call ourselves devotees of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, or even true satsangis? How could we even flourish? How can we even grow? How could we even move forward in this religion without a foundation? If a man wants to build a house, he doesn't build the walls first and then makes a roof. He first makes the foundation. He lays the concrete slab down, and after that, he builds everything on top of it. In the same way, Mahima is in the form of that concrete slab. Without it, it's just not possible that one would survive. Now, in Gunatitan Swamini's Vato, there's a great vat, a great talk that Swami explains. Swami says, there is no greater spiritual endeavor than to understand the glory of God, saints, and his devotees. No greater spiritual endeavor. Meaning, there's many, many kinds of spiritual endeavors. We can say serving is a good spiritual endeavor. Association is a good spiritual endeavor. Any kind of bhakti is a good spiritual endeavor. Meditation is a good spiritual endeavor. Being humble is a good spiritual endeavor. But out of all spiritual endeavors, Bhagwan says the greatest one of all, the peak, the pinnacle of all spiritual endeavors, is to understand the glory of God, saints, and his devotees. Regarding that vat, that talk that I just talked about, I want to tell you a small story. At one time, in the time of Shree Maharaj, Dada Khacher's servant became very sick. So sick that he could not even clean up behind himself. He was completely broken down. His body could not move. Now, the question was, who would take care of this servant? He was just a servant. He had no value in people's eyes. So the question remained, who would take care of this servant? So Shree Maharaj assembled a meeting and explained the situation and asked, who will take care of Dada Khacher's servant? The people sitting in the assembly said, he's just a servant. We just tell him to do things. He has no value, and he's always getting sick. This is what the assembly full of devotees said. Then Maharaj asked Parvat Bhai, a great devotee of high spiritual status, that if he would take care of Dada Khacher's servant. Parvat Bhai replied humbly, it's my great fortune that I get to serve the servants of the Ekantik Dada Khacher. Then Parvat Bhai immediately started to serve Dada Khacher's servant until he became well again. Maharaj became very pleased on Parvat Bhai. Such a small story, but such a big message. What does this explain to us? Parvat Bhai, he didn't look at the status. He didn't look at if he was a servant, but he looked at how that servant had connection to Dada Khacher, such an ekantik, such a highly spiritualized devotee of Bhagwan Swaminarayan. Such a devotee that Bhagwan Swaminarayan stayed in his village for 29 years. Such a devotee, where Bhagwan, when he was traveling as Nilkanvarni, could have stayed in great kings' palaces. He was offered kingdoms, and he was offered castles and riches and wealth and women. But Bhagwan denied everything and stayed in such a devotee's home. What is his greatness? His humble nature. His nature to please Bhagwan. All these qualities that Dada Khacher consisted of really tied Bhagwan to his village for 29 years. That Dada Khacher, such a great devotee, Parvat Bhai was looking at his greatness. He was seeing that I could serve the servant of Dada Khacher. Imagine how much glory, imagine how much value Imagine how much greatness he understands of even Bhagwan's servant, which is Dada Kachar, his servant. So servant. Imagine how much glory he understands. Now this is an example for us that if a devotee of God can serve a servant who has no connection with any other person, you can see even on a religious perspective, and who only serves Dada Kachar, then obviously we have a long way to go in understanding the glory, the value, and the greatness of God, saints, and his devotees. But nowadays, in the modern age, we understand the glory, the greatness, and the value of lavish luxuries, such as cars, money, women, tasty food. All these lavish luxuries really entice our mind. They really pull our minds towards such kind of items. And we truly understand its greatness, so much so that we constantly have a remembrance of some kind of materialistic pleasure in our mind daily. You can even say constantly. We have understood its greatness. Really, it doesn't have greatness, but we've understood something about it. That's why we constantly remember it. That's why we truly can't forget it. That's why we engage in it, yet we understand its perishable nature. So, as I talked about before, it's a matter of direction. It's a matter of what way you want to go. That really determines something for the future. Now just think, we work hard. We work overtime to earn more money because we have value for money, correct? Obviously, no one works free for overtime. No one just likes working. They want their money. That's why they work. But to work excessively, to forget the value of everything else and keep money as a target. Nowadays, people engage in such ways. We understand its value so vastly that we forget about our physical and mental capacity, and we push ourselves to the limit. All for paper? I ask you, all for just a piece of paper that has ink on it. Imagine how much greatness we've really understood of money. We forget our capacity, our mental, physical, everything. We forget about it. And we directly engage without looking at anything for pieces of paper. This is our level. This is our true level, you can say. But if we divert this mega force that we have in the spiritual world towards God, saints, and devotees, we would earn spiritual greatness and earn the blessings of all. It's all a matter of direction, as I said, in the end. But on a brighter side, since we may be going to a temple every Saturday or Sunday, or we may gather in spiritual assemblies, we can at least understand the greatness of others. But in order to understand the greatness of others, what are the characteristics of a person who has Mahima? Let's listen. First and foremost, a person who has Mahima can't stay without the company of God, saints, and his devotees. Meaning, he's completely attached to them. He can't stay without the company. He can't stay even for 1 second without engaging in some way, some activity that's related with God, saints, or his devotees. Second, he's humble, obedient, and he has a virtue of servitude towards God, saints, and his devotees. Meaning he's completely forgot about himself. He just wants to humbly serve. Why? How could you humbly serve someone you don't understand? Obviously, if you've understood their greatness, their glory, then you would humbly serve them. That's one of the other characteristics. And lastly, one would have deep affection for the three above I mentioned. Deep affection. Just like how one has affection for one's family members, relatives, friends, one would have affection for God, saints, and its devotees. These are the three characteristics. There are many more, but I just named you the main characteristics, all because of one thing. One understands the Mahima. Out of this lecture, all I want you to understand is just like how we have Mahima, we have value for lavish luxuries. If we divert that force towards the spiritual world, we would attain greatness beyond this world. Also, to understand the Mahima of these three categories above is no easy task, but by the association of true ekantic saints and devotees, meaning singular-minded and actually who have understood the value of the three components, such, if we associate with them, if we share our thoughts with them, if we listen to their talks and we totally practically put it into our lives, then we would also understand the Mahima and the greatness of God, saints, and devotees. My humble Jai Swaminarayan. Sripatim Sridharam Sarvadeveshwaram Bhaktidharmatmadam Vasudevam Hare Madhavam Kesavam Kamadam Karan Swaminarayanam Nilkantham Bhaje. Hare Krishna Maharajani Jai.